Team Branch Library, how can I help you? Can I have your last name, please?
Lauren, unmute. You gotta mute.
So in terms of board members, I see Tim and Ed, Jenny. That might be
Thought
it.
I just saw Rich. I thought I just saw Rich Engel.
There's, yes,
here.
he's impersonating Tim Whalen.
He's my office administrator, and he gave me his code. So there I am. I changed it.
Secret identity, huh?
That's right. How's everyone?
Good.
Yeah, can't complain, but I will.
Hi there, it's Christina calling in.
Hi, Christina.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
And I promise to get through the resolutions before you have to leave.
No problem.
I need to know who Central L3 is, please. Thanks.
And there's Bob.
Yep. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Sam.
I see David Lankus on LinkedIn pretty regularly.
Yep.
He's a contributor.
Yeah, actually just signed with the publisher to do a new book. We're all very excited about it. It's going to be pretty cool.
Why does it have a, go ahead.
And it's not a book for librarians. It's a book for non-librarians.
There's a
For us
picture.
lay people.
There's a picture of a ship with it, right? Isn't that a? I thought on LinkedIn there was a picture of a ship associated with it, which I'm not sure what that meant.
Could be. So Gail, I have 7 board members total.
Yeah, I think it's 7.
So one instance, we got 3. We're MIA.
So Marilyn is absent. Haven't heard from Babette.
I'd like to go on record saying I miss Gail's snacks.
Why, thank you.
I'll second that.
Jill, Babette said that she likely wasn't going to be able to make it today.
Oh, did she? Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to her the other day. I think she's busy with some of the health center stuff that happened this past week.
Recently, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
So that makes everyone.
Correct.
So let me call the meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome to the OCPL board meeting on this wonderful, beautiful June day. We have a lot of things on the agenda ahead of us. At the top of the agenda, however, is the consent agenda. And so we have the minutes from last month, and we also have board absences. Marilyn is listed, and I'd like to add Babette to that list for board absences. Do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have a second? Bob,
Second.
seconds?
Second.
Bob's hand was up first.
Okay.
And all in favor, say aye.
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 Any noes? Any abstentions? It passes. So I would like for us to do the resolutions first so that we can do those while Christina is in the meeting. She has to leave early. We have 3 resolutions. The first is the annual report to the state, and there's 2 reports in that annual report. The second is the receipt of money, grant money, and the third is the application for a grant. So the first resolution is 2009. It's the state annual report. Would someone like to move this motion, this resolution?
I'll make a motion.
I have no idea who that was.
Was that
I think it was Christina.
Oh, Christina, thank you. Christina moved the motion on the annual report. Anyone want a second? I see Bob's hand. Thank you very much. Any discussion of this?
I skimmed it real fast. It looked like mostly the same information as last year with the personnel changes, some of the numbers, but it didn't strike me as being controversial. I guess is that the word?
I wondered if the numbers had been impacted by the ransomware, because some of the numbers were very different than the previous year, but not consistently different.
You would think that might have impacted, I don't know, electronic resources, maybe circulation of electronic resources because they weren't available.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anybody else have a theory?
I mean, the hack is going to impact a lot of things. It's going to impact people's ability to provide frontline service. It's going to impact the trust level that we have with the public. It's going to impact how programming goes. I mean, my suggestion would be that there is a fairly massive impact of the hack on that annual report. And that, you know, a lot of discrepancies that you're going to see are going to be similar. And frankly, next year is also going to be very different from, you know, from this year and then from the year prior.
Right.
And so, you know, a lack of consistency across annual reports is not super telling right now, since we've had kind of 2 really epic events that would disrupt. I'm happy to get details if there are specific details that people are looking for, but this is my general fast reading.
Could we hear from Dane at some point on that subject?
I'm here. Mark and I worked on the annual report for most of it. In the state notes, that's where we put the hack was a big component to it, and the staff turnover. So it definitely takes a while to fill in. So let me know if you have any other questions.
Amanda, thank you. Any other comments about the annual report? Bob, is that a hand, or you're talking but nothing's coming out?
what is the fiscal year the report covers, or what period?
It's the calendar year.
It's the count. Okay.
So it's all pre-COVID.
Yeah. No,
Anything else?
it's just data, right? So,
I'll call the question.
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Need to do roll call. So I'll do it by how I have you written down. Rich?
Here, yes.
Yes. Tim?
Aye.
Ed?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Christina?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you. The next one in the resolutions is 2010. Resolved that the OCPL Board of Trustees accept the grant funding from the Empire State Library Network in the amount of $1,500 for promoting the 2020 census. Anybody want to make this motion?
I'll move it.
Bob moves it. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Tim, thank you. Any discussion?
Has the census been postponed? No.
No.
One thing, just it's not totally related, but I did see on a different library that I have an Overdrive membership to, they had a link to the census on the app. So just something that I noticed. Sorry, it's a little bit off topic, but it reminded me.
I'm not hurt by that at all, Sam. Don't feel two-timed at all, but no, we're actually doing pretty well with our census. I mean, Kathy has more updated information, I know, but from everything I hear, we're doing real well in the census. It's been working quite well for us, despite the fact that we're not physically able to be available to people.
Yeah, we're doing great. And that $1,500 has been used to put billboards up in hard to count areas. So if you're driving on the west side at Geddes and West Fayette, you'll see one, or at Butternut on the 81 on-ramp. There's a billboard there as well. They're up and running.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions, comments before we vote? Okay, again with the roll call. Rich?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Christina?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
And I'm also yes. Thank you. The final resolution is 2011. Resolved that the OCPL Board of Trustees approves the grant application submission for the IMLS CARES in the amount not to exceed $400,000 for the expansion of the Tech Backpack Loan Program for the city branches with the goal of providing internet connectivity to the economically disadvantaged.
I would like to give a fast shout out to everybody who really pushed this thing through. It was really remarkable, the speed.
We need to move it first, sorry.
So moved.
Tim moves it. I saw Rich as a second. Okay, Christian.
I mean, just encapsulated, it's really amazing. People managed to flip an IMLS grant in like a week and a half. It was a real team effort. Mark and Dane, our branch managers, people were really taking just an incredible lead on it. I'm just super impressed by everybody who did so much work on it. Just to fill you in on it, it is definitely for the tech backpacks. And it is, so I reached out to county and I said, hey, look, we have funding for this 100 tech backpacks. Is that funding still there? And the sense that I got was that, right now there is no promise that any funding is still there. Everything is way too much up in the air. So as we discussed it, it really seemed like this would be something where we could apply for that if we can get the tech tech backpacks, then we can fulfill that need, as well as, then maybe the county doesn't have to worry about that stuff so much. There's also written into it the idea of expanding our Wi-Fi footprint at our various locations. Sam, I know you're excited about that. So that's going to be in there. And we also have a little bit of conversation about the beginnings of a conversation in the community to start establishing a mesh network, which Sam would know a lot more about than probably anybody else at this table, but could be really potentially great for Syracuse because it would be looking at low cost internet on very large areas of our community. I want to give a huge shout out to Carol Johnson, who has been working on this thing tirelessly. She has created a lot of it and has been one of the major driving forces to move us forward on this. It's a great grant, and I have a lot of hope for it.
What the timeline is for when they actually make the awards?
Pretty tight. I think we're going to hear in August.
Oh, great. Do we have to front the money and then get reimbursed?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
And there's no match with this either, correct?
Nope.
That's great.
No, this is squarely, this is the IMLS response to COVID, to the CARES Act, essentially. And this is how, they got their chunk of money and then they divvied it out to the states. And then the state is kind of divvying it down from there. So that's kind of what that's the pot of money we're shooting for. And it really, again, commendations to Carol and to the rest of the team who worked so hard on this. I know that Renata was very involved in this as well. And it really is a way of addressing some of these connectivity issues, especially as we have seen how important that is for children's education, and as we still don't know what the school year looks like next year.
So two things, Christian. First of all, just so you know, we have faculty on campus who have been working on mesh networks and very interested in them. So there might be a collaboration at some point. Second, does this mean that the current tech backpacks might be shifted to the suburban libraries or outside of the city?
No, not necessarily. This is simply a matter of our getting more of the backpacks, which is something I think we all wanted to do. I think they were effective. They were a very effective program before this all started happening. And now that this has started happening, any reticence that we had about their effectiveness, I think, is gone. This is to kind of do a double check. If the county can come up with the cash, great. Then that's that many more, that much more connectivity in the community. If due to a variety of reasons, they cannot come up with the, $100,000 that they need to make this thing happen, then we can fill that gap and do so without necessarily really making a big, thing about it.
Is that a matching funds from the county?
No, sir. It's a straight up, we get the money, we get the money.
Okay. Tim, do you know where IMLS is? Is the FY20, this is 21 money? Or 20?
This is 20 money, to my understanding. IMLS is the Institute of Museum and Library Services down in DC.
Right.
It's a federal body.
Congress is working on the 2021 fiscal year budget now. So the budget for IMLS has already been approved. Plus, you said this was money they got from the CARES Act, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's already funded.
Bob, just to tell you how this dance usually goes for the last few years, IMLS every year in the budget gets zeroed out and then ends up somehow with more money than it started out with before it got zeroed out. So this is just kind of the dance of IMLS and how it's been going over the last few years.
Anything else? Okay, so let's vote. Rich?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Christina?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Thank you. I know it's tedious having to do a roll call vote, but that's what the recommendation is for online meetings. So we are down to our next agenda item, which I believe is the director's report from Christian.
Hi, folks. So I apologize for the lack of a written report at this point. That's on me, and I apologize that that was not forthcoming. Latest updates are that everything proceeds apace. We are doing well. The library pickup is going great. People are getting very strong responses. We've gotten some amazing feedback from the community about how happy they are with it and how comfortable they are with it. I've been hearing a lot from staff that due to the level of effort and planning that we've put in, they feel pretty safe and they feel fairly comfortable. I mean, as comfortable as anybody feels nowadays, but they feel pretty comfortable. It's come to my attention that for whatever reason, OCPL did not feel like it was a big part of the national conversation around libraries for a while. I don't understand why that would be the case. You guys are a really smart, innovative group. Right now, library pickup, based on our modeling, is being utilized at 3 locations in Long Island. I think someplace in Westchester is modeling us as well. And the DC curbside plan or pickup plan, I'm not saying that we gave it to them or anything, but they did have our documents and they're using pretty much all of the same descriptive language and techniques that we're using. So to the credit of OCPL, our staff right now are, again, a solid 3 to 6 weeks ahead of much of the rest of the profession right now, and they are leading the way very effectively. And a lot of people have noticed it. So I wanted you guys to know that. We are going to move to the next stage. I mean, we're coming up on it. In our original document where we had planned for the multiple phase reopening of the library, the document that we shared with Ryan had a kind of a 3-stage reopening, and the curbside pickup or the library pickup was only ever, was originally intended to be a 2-week stopgap. We are now we're now halfway through the 5th week. And as such, the thing that I've been telling a lot of people who will stand still and listen to me about it is, if you are not in control of your reopening, someone will take control of it for you. It's very important to me that we be able to guide our reopening, that we be in charge of the process on this. So in order to not put county into a position where they feel like they have to move up the pace or anything like that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get ahead on it. We are looking to begin to do very limited contact, well, not really contact, but just very limited in person, starting on the 29th. So 2 weeks from Monday, from last Monday, or a week from Monday coming up. Staff are aware of it. We have our breath guards are in place for the most part. There's a couple of hanging ones that we need to kind of readjust, but for the most part, there are breath guards in place at all of our libraries. All staff have masks. There are actually additional masks for all staff, so they have a reserve of masks to go from. I'm wearing a library issued mask all the time. Dragana has been producing face shields for Upstate Medical, and I had her turn production over this week to producing face shields for us. So all public service staff will be issued a plastic face shield when they go to the computer to assist a patron, or when they go to a shelf to assist a patron. They will have a mask, a face shield, and they will be working behind a breath guard. We also have stanchions, which will be in place to act as spacers, and we have gaffing tape, which we're using on our floors to create walk zones, no-go zones, spaces, directionals, arrows, all that kind of stuff. I had originally intended to have our service be limited populations with special populations at set hours. The feedback I've gotten from staff has been they're not comfortable with that. And while I have debated it back and forth, what I'm coming up with is a modified version of that, which will have both individual populations and specialized populations as kind of a focus, as well as appointments, so that we have some control over who is in and out of the door at any given time. Our expectation is that if we do appointments and that kind of thing, should be our standard for about a month or so. And then we'll see where we can go from there. We'll see if the public are feeling that they're getting enough access or not enough, as the case may be. Staff are not thrilled about this, but I understand their concerns, and I think that they are aware that we are working hard to mitigate these concerns. I've been spending a lot of time in the mitigation of risk aspect of things, and kind of working in that pile. I have a very technical drawing, which I did on Saturday morning when the kids were drawing at the kitchen table. Here's my very technical drawing, but you can see that there's about 8 stages of protection between the individual patron and our staff. So one of the things that also we're looking at, which is going to be very important for us in this time, is the fact that we will be continuing to explore and provide low to no contact services. So when we start opening the doors and people can come in by appointment, we're still going to be doing library pickup. And we're exploring some things now. Aussie over at Beecham has been talking about some great ideas about working with patrons on resumes. Can they send us their resume, fill out a form, we create a resume and send it back to them? Great service, really useful, very personal, 0 contacts, right? And the reason why I talk about this and the reason why I'm obsessing about it, frankly, as much as I am, is that if we go from a body of 100 people, 100 people need libraries, right? So 100 people need a library. If 60 of those people only need books and materials for themselves or their child, we're now down to 40 people. Of those 40 people, if 10 of them need resumes, now we're down to 30. If 10 of them just need to print something that's non-confidential, now we're down to 20. So now instead of 100 people coming through the library, we're looking at how we can work with the 20 people who absolutely need to be through the door. So this is something we will be continuing to do. We will be continuing to look at low, no contact services that can diminish the load on our staff. And then something that remains a mystery. It is the questing beast, and I'm not going to pretend that it's not, is what youth services looks like at this point. We have a lot of very smart people looking at it. I have a lot of concerns about camp library, which is every summer there are a lot of kids who just get dropped off at the library when their folks go to work and picked up at the end of the day for dinner. And that's on a regular summer. Right now we have more parents starting to go back to work. We have less options for them for childcare, be that camps or childcare agencies or summer schools or whatever. So our concern is that we are going to look at a much higher level of camp library and what that looks like. I would be lying to you if I said I had a quick and easy answer on it. It's one of the things that I'm spending a lot of time working on at my kitchen table at home. Otherwise, all is well. Staff are good. Some of the cost factors of running a library during COVID are a bit challenging. It's something that Mark and I are starting to kind of take a look at a little bit, although we don't have a lot. But things like suddenly we have very large security, like security is there all the time. So how does that impact us for costs? When can we have security there? When can we not have security there, which is a whole other kettle of fish? When can we, now we need 100 stanchions all of a sudden. That changes our budget. The bags, our bags right now, the bags that we're utilizing cost about 63 cents a pop, and that's without any printing. That's every single time somebody walks out the door with a book, then, it's costing us about 50 cents. So these are all the things that we're kind of trying to look at and mitigate as we're going forward. I would be lying if I told you that I feel like I am seeing less problems on a day-to-day basis, but I think that we are getting better at addressing them.
Kristen, this is Ginny. We've heard the county executive say that layoffs are inevitable. I know all of your 103 line people are gone. Have you received any indication as to whether there will be other staffing cuts at OCPL of full-time employees?
I have asked extremely pointed questions repeatedly and have been told that currently all that exists is rumor and innuendo. Make of that as you will. We are, of course, planning for the idea that we may have some reductions. I have no idea of how deep that may or may not be. I would be lying to you, Ginny, if I said that we could absorb them. We really can't absorb a lot in cuts right now. As it is, we're working with almost half the staff that we had before this all started. As we are starting to look at libraries reopening, I am going to be very honest with the board. I am very doubtful that we will be able to open all of the libraries. There may be some staffing concerns that would make it so that we will not be able to open all of our branch libraries. I have not heard any specifics. I've heard a great deal in the wind, and that's pretty much all I've got right now is wind.
And I don't know the specifics, but there's some kind of requirement that we be open a certain number of hours.
Yeah, the minimum standards. Right now, the minimum standards are very flexible.
Yeah, okay.
I've been in meetings with Lauren Moore, the state librarian. I'm in regular contact with the state library and our contacts there. They are reevaluating all of the minimum standards because they really need to at this point. So that's not something that we really should lose a lot of sleep over. We will be in compliance on it. We would have to go pretty far before we were out of compliance on it as it currently stands.
Christian, one more. Your current cost increases, are they sort of within the bounds of the budget, or are you already outside of what you'd consider the budget?
Oh yeah, no, we're all within the budget. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we're going to go over. I'm not suggesting that we're going to have a gap or a hole or anything like that. We have really talented people working on the numbers. Thanks, Mark. I feel that I would be doing the board a disservice, though, if I did not bring to your attention that simply doing business now, there are cost increases in our just being able to do our work. Also, the fact that the libraries, this current state of the libraries due to COVID is such that our short staffing issues are going to only get worse. On a good day in a branch library, if it's a well-functioning branch library, the branch itself almost kind of acts as an additional staff member when it comes to helping the public. We've redesigned public libraries so much and they're so designed for essentially solo sailing, that a lot of patrons will just be serviced just by the building itself. They'll come in, they'll find their materials, they'll check out, they'll use the bathroom, they'll be on the computer. All of this stuff can happen with no interaction from us at all. And so in a lot of days, I've solo run a busy city branch because the branch helped me out. At this point, the branch cannot do that. You almost need another staff member to deal with the branch. So our issues around staffing and short staffing are going to get a lot worse before they get better, and they will have to be reflected in what we do as our staffing hours, our opening hours.
Christian, it's Rich. Have we fully reported this to Ryan? Do you need any more advocates to the county executive, such as Jill or Sam or the mayor? Or
I am always very much in favor of any advocates I can get. Right now, I don't have. I mean, I would rather. So for me, as an activist and an advocate, I always want to be very tactical. And if there is an issue, I want to have that exact issue and be able to push to that. If people were to mention that the library is spread pretty thin and we can't really absorb that many cuts, that would be fine. My preference would probably be to wait and see what our cuts kind of look like and then be responsive to that at the time, if that works for you guys. But I defer to the will of the board. You guys have a lot more experience with the county than I do, and I'm more than happy to look to you for input on pacing and timing.
Ed Cochin runs the county.
That's what I hear.
He get in there anytime we need him.
There was a day, yeah. Well, let me go back though to the question of city branches. The city pays for the branches, so why is that a problem with the county? And we have accumulated fund balance. They use a lot in the budget, but we've accumulated a fair amount of fund balance from last year.
Right.
So there should be the financing there to be able to keep the city branches going.
Oh yeah, no. I'm sorry, Ed. I wasn't quite understanding the question. It's not a matter of whether or not we need to shut down the buildings because of heat, light, or any of that kind of stuff. That's not it. It's that we went from 182 staff to now down to 100 staff, not all of which are in public service. So when you have a library that has, say, especially now that we're hitting summer, we have people who need to burn off annual leave. We have people who have established vacations, all of which they have a right and should use. I'm not dinging anybody for taking vacation. I wish I could take one, right? So what happens is if you have a branch where we're now down to 3 staff on that branch, one of them's on vacation or one of them, their kid has the sniffles or whatever, nobody getting sick, right? You're down to 2. If we are only providing pickup service, I mean, it's not ideal, but you can still run a library for pickup service with 2. Particularly if you're just doing the patron interactions of handing things out, not if, particularly if you're removing the pulls from that work. When it comes to public service, particularly the kind of careful public service we're going to be looking at, it's going to be very hard to run those branches with 2 people. And that's why I'm discussing
Well,
closing
my
them.
point is there's a budget that could support additional staffing. Now, I haven't heard it being asked for and being denied, and that would be one of the places I would look in order to keep the branches going.
I would be very happy to have a conversation with you, Ed, about any insights you might have on that. Every conversation I've had with Brian over the last month has been, can you give me any staff? And I can't do, if you guys want more service, I can't do it with what I got. Now, has that been a written, formal ask that's gone to Ryan? No. But pretty much every time I talk to Brian over the last few weeks, it's been very much like, yeah, it's going great, but we can't really take it to the next level unless we start getting people.
Well,
and
we can talk more about it, but
great.
Typically the city has been, the county has allowed more latitude because the city is supporting the branches 100%.
Great.
So that's right.
I'm around this week. If you'd like to have a conversation, I'd love your insight. I really could absolutely use it right now.
I might reach out to and see what the county's attitude is. I know still enough people there that I might say, I don't understand is there a reluctance to go forward in the branches? I might reach out and do that and then talk to you. But let me go. I had another question. I want to, I only heard early retirement I heard about was Joe Malidi. Have you had other librarians retire in the early retirement incentive?
I think that we had a lot of custodial do it. Mark, Mark, have you been getting those numbers on how many people have finally done it? I think a few, but not a lot.
We had 5 individuals retire from the library.
Total. Yeah. And one was Malidi, but how many librarians?
Malidi's not on our roster. Malidi's on the facilities roster.
Right. Okay, but
those 5 don't include him.
Okay. So what are the?
Now I heard that there were 4 of our facilities guys. I heard that 4 of those guys retired as well.
Yeah.
So you don't know of any librarians or any of our delivery and pickup service or any of those folks?
Delivery and pickup, they're all young. None of them are going anywhere. And Mark, you said there were 5 librarians?
Yes.
We have technical services. One of my staff members is retiring. With a lot of institutional knowledge, he's one of our go-to people for technical services here. So that will be a big loss.
So will that impact the members also?
The whole system.
Okay.
A huge loss.
Tim, you had a question. I saw your hand up.
There, now I'm unmuted. I assume at Central Library, at least, where we've got a big security presence, that they'll be enforcing patrons having to wear masks inside the building. Yes. Any thoughts about how you're going to deal with that in the branches where maybe they don't have the security force like we have at Central?
We're going to start by having security be present, to help patrons start learning good behaviors and start learning new approaches. The issue of how librarians deal with this is absolutely a big deal, Tim. It's something that's absolutely hanging over people's head. There's a lot of this that comes down to library cop and who's going to have to act as library cop. I'm all for having security there, but at a certain point, our security becomes a significant drain on us financially. Mm-hmm. And it kind of becomes the same thing of, if somebody walks into the library and they're clearly drunk, is it pleasant to tell that person to leave? No, but it's kind of a necessity. In the case of the COVID stuff and when it comes to behaviors and that kind of thing, we're really kind of trying to knock it around right now. I am really trying to keep things very, very flexible as we move forward. We were just kind of talking about scenarios, and there's some stuff that it's appropriate for librarians to jump in and be like, yeah, hey, you're walking through the door, you don't have a mask, don't come in without a mask. You're wandering around, you don't have your mask on, please wear a mask. That's all very appropriate. Where it gets into things that are a little bit harder is like, you know, hypothetically, Sam and I decide we've had enough of it. We want to go out. We know each other. We bring our kids. It's dad day. We're having a dadder day together. We bring our kids to the library. Our kids that clearly are not related are hanging out and climbing all over each other. Maybe they're wearing masks. Are we going to enforce that? I'm not gonna. I mean, I don't really feel like that's my place. I don't feel like it's my place to go over to, you know, parents who are having playgroups where they've made that decision. Now, I can ask them to have their kid wear a mask. You know, that's appropriate. And those are certainly good habits for people to get into. But yeah, no, I mean, there's no easy answer. It comes back to library cop. And some of it's going to be that we'll get security to help us out. Some of it's going to be community engagement partners. Some of it is going to be hopefully people learning behaviors. And some of it is going to be some people are just not allowed in the library because they refuse to. I mean, we even have masks for them. Like if you don't have a library, you don't have a mask and you really need to use the library, we have a mask for you. You can keep it. But, you know, you don't want to wear it or you are clearly sick or whatever, you know, that gets a little squiffy, but that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's going to come down to the staff eventually. But I would like for us to kind of have a little bit of a bridge over that point while people are still learning new behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Christian, we had a similar conversation with metal detectors. Who's going to confront the guy that sets off the metal detector? Not a librarian. You wouldn't, you know, God knows what he's carrying.
Right, well, we don't have metal detectors.
No.
We have the emergency gates.
That's why one of the reasons it wasn't very well received was exactly your question, though. Who's going to confront the guy that sets off the metal detector? Not a librarian. That they don't pay. They're not paid to do that.
That's not our gig.
Yeah. Well, who knows what he's carrying? So yeah, but you're right.
Christian, I would assume that there'll be signage around the libraries about kind of the new rules. And having been out, and all of us have been out in public around other people, there's wearing a mask and there's wearing the mask correctly. And so you might want to think about having signage that kind of emphasizes. It's amazing how many people don't know.
Yeah.
Or don't comply.
That actually raises an issue that I kind of want to throw to the board, and I'm not exactly sure what the procedure is on this, and I should have done a better job with it. So with the emails, so I apologize for that. We do need to adjust our code of conduct here at the library to include wearing a mask, because we need to have it where we can point to it. Is that something that I have power to do as executive of the organization, or is that something that goes to you as a policy decision that has to be voted on?
I think that's a board policy.
It's a board policy.
Yeah.
Would you like to discuss it now? Do you need formal language, which you could vote on electronically as a holdover? No, you can't vote electronically. If I were to put language into the chat box, would we be able to discuss it and potentially vote on it from there? Does that
I'd be in favor of that.
act as due diligence? Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Christian, we can come back to that if you need time to type.
I'm a super fast typist, but yes. Yeah, that's going to be a big deal for us, and having it in place where we can point to it is going to be a big deal for us as well.
Okay. If you want to type away, and we'll kind of move ahead in the agenda.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be rude if anybody had any more questions for me or anything.
The only thing I had is you did not talk about your visits to the suburban libraries, and you might want to touch on that for a moment.
Yeah, they've been going great. People are doing really, really well. They're set up. They're going well. I saw things in place at Liverpool. Maxwell's getting ready to go. Solvay is really moving along. They've got their stuff set up. You know, not so much this week, but the week before, I was able to go around to, let's see, DeWitt and Jamesville, Jordan, Liverpool, Maxwell, Onondaga Free, Skinny Atlas, and Solvay. And then I'll be going back out to the members the end of this week, beginning of next. Things are going great. They're in really, really good shape. I had a really excellent interaction at Jordan where there was a gentleman there who had clearly been waiting for a couple of minutes, and I wasn't sure if anybody knew where he was or whatever. Sure enough, a couple of minutes later, a reference librarian comes to the door, has a whole big stack of information. They're laying it out for him, spelling it all out. You know, libraries are alive and well in the county, and they're really, really doing well. They're ticking along. Meg has been, you know, Meg's been a major, major leader for us. She's been getting stuff out there. Materials are flying off her shelves, I know. And people are starting to really be responsive. It's been good for us because there was a little bit of a period of time, not long, but a little bit of a period of time where a lot of the load for library services on the county was landing on the city. That is, you know, less and less of that has been the case. I think people are more and more accessing their libraries, and most people are, you know, most people are ready to go out of the gate, and they're going to be providing their services. They'll be a little bit slower on the in-person services and opening the doors, as they should be. I feel that curbside or pickup is a key part of reopening process, and I think that if you rush it, then you lose the benefits of it. So I'm sure that they'll be moving themselves through that process eventually, but I hope that they will take the time to really benefit from having the control over their space that they have with curbside or just pick up.
Thank you. So I'll let you type and we'll move ahead in the agenda.
Thank you.
I know that there's no report from the MOU from Ed.
Or Christian.
Or Christian. Jen Milligan.
It's just, we're not really having a conversation about it at this time. Nobody's really raised it. But
That's
we're aware
okay.
of it.
Is Jen?
Yep, I'm here, Jill. Hi.
Oh, there you are.
I think the big news is that, you know, all the suburban libraries at this point are doing curbside pickup, and that's going really, really well. And there were a number of budget votes that came in yesterday. So scouring my email, I know that Beeville, Maxwell, Liverpool, Fayetteville, and Manlius all had their budgets approved with large, large margins yesterday, which is just really fantastic news because I don't think anybody knew what to expect. Voter turnout was 4 or 5 times higher than it has been in recent years, and the library still came through like the shining stars that we are, so that was good.
It's great news.
Yeah. Very good news. Thank you. Amanda, transit report. Anything you want to say about it?
Not much, just that we didn't really do delivery. We did start up delivery at the end of May. So I had a couple notes about how it stopped on March 17th. We didn't start up again until the week of May 18th. And at that point, it was still just a limited amount of deliveries. Everybody's getting delivery now. So next month, it'll look a little bit more normal, but I think it will be the new normal because we do have the 7-day quarantine and just making sure that we aren't running the guys ragged too. We got a bit of a staff cut down there. So we just have Jesse Anderson, who's our inventory control supervisor, who's been doing a fantastic job. And then we have Eddie and Charles. So we're a little short. But let me know if you have any questions about it.
So that's our full-time, the person we just recently recruited full-time. So you're happy with how that's working out?
He's amazing.
It's been fantastic, yes.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of guy where I asked him for a plan and then it was in my inbox 2 minutes later because he'd already written it.
Good.
So that kind of guy, really, really solid. Great hire, Amanda. And Dane on that one. That's a really great hire. I want to just chime in on a little bit of what Amanda's talking about. Obviously, the team's doing really great. I wanted to give you an update about the quarantine protocols that we have. I was in a webinar yesterday with Nate Hill, who from Metro Library Council, who's one of the partners on the IMLS OCLC COVID study. Things are proceeding apace. The literature review came out today. It's about 26 pages long. I've been breezing through it. It's my day. And right now it looks like some hard data is going to be coming out from them about what COVID sustainability on library materials looks like. In about 2 weeks, there should be some preliminary reports. After that, they come in about 4-week periods after that. There's another 2 reports that are supposed to come after that with increasing levels of kind of follow-up, and then also just different weird things like, okay, if this book has COVID on it and I put another book on top of it, does that mean that this now has COVID, right? So those are the kinds of studies that they're doing. They are pipelining the information out as quickly as they possibly can. Currently, we are going to stick with the 7-day. It did come up. Nate seemed to have some opinions about 7 days versus 72 hours, but he surely did not suggest that 7 days was too short. I'll take too long over too short right now.
Let's go to Mark and then we'll come back to the information in chat. So Amanda, by the way, thank you for your report. Mark, anything that we should note about the budget?
A couple of items. I attended the Ways and Means Committee last week to put our local law updates on the floor for the leases at Southwest Community Center and Northeast Community Center. And during that session, that Zoom call, Steve Morgan was also on the agenda to speak about some of the things from the county's financial end. So I stayed on to hear what he had to say. He did mention some of the same things that I've been telling you guys as far as there are measures to combat some of the budget shortfalls. But I did find it interesting that he did say that although sales tax revenue, it has been bad as projected, it hasn't been as bad. So they've seen that in April and May, some of the receipts coming in have been a little better than they thought they would be, even though they're still not great. And another note was the anticipated or potential 20% cuts in state aid. We have not seen anything like that come down from the governor's office yet. And so the longer we go without hearing that, the better we feel about it. So just wanted to let you guys know that he said that in that meeting Friday. Second quarter forecast is due in a couple of weeks. And I just received an email today from Financial Operations to work on that. And one of the things they sent me was a list of our funded vacant positions and our retirees. So we are going to be looking at, I have to communicate to them our desired plans for our 11 funded vacant positions and 5 positions that have been vacated by retirees. So that's a total of 16 positions. The funded vacant positions split 6 in Central, 5 in the branches. The retirees, there are 3 in the branches, 1 in Systems or Danes Group and 1 in Central Library. So we've got to kind of look at what we plan to do in 2020 fiscal year with these positions and where we plan to go in 2021 with them. That's not, so I'm kind of hearing from 2 offices, the DMB office and the FinOps office. I'm hearing from DMB that there's a freeze on all these positions to save money, but I'm also being asked what we want to do with the positions on the other hand. So we'll keep asking the questions. And to Ed's point about the positions being funded by the city abstract, the sentiment I'm kind of getting is that I don't think they're looking at that as much as they used to. Now, I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's because we've got a lot of new leadership over there, or if the city is looking to save money as well. But I've been
but if you remember the budget, the executive budget wiped away all the fund balance in the city.
Yeah.
So
and then they started the budget off with it. But when they want to cut, when they're doing freezes, they just freeze positions, period, even if it's funded by someone else.
Well, we've had that battle over the years, but sometimes it takes, they do certain things instinctively. But sometimes it takes a conscious approaching them with it to ask them for a conscious decision for why they would want to withhold money when they're already funded and the city's willing to pay for it.
Okay.
I'm happy to ask any questions to help clarify on the city's end as well. Just let me know what I should say.
Well, Steve,
Well, I was kind of assuming that if we
Sam, the latitude has over the years of the formation of OCPL in the 70s, the city has provided pretty wide latitude to the administration of the libraries in the city, and have not really sought to be involved in every decision about filling every vacancy. That would really create a whole different scenario for the way the library operates. But the general question could be asked, I guess. I wouldn't mind asking it myself of the mayor or the deputy mayor with you there if you choose. But this money's already in the budget. There's I'm sure they want service delivered to city branches, but if there's a different answer, we ought to know about it.
I'll follow up with you after, Ed, and then we can figure out what makes sense.
Okay.
One last thing I had was the
going back, wait to Sam for what, the old Yiddish proverb, I think it is, asking the right question is half the answer.
Yes.
So it's going to depend on how we ask it.
Yes, for sure. Okay.
As you all are aware, typically we start the budget process. It starts usually with a letter from Steve Morgan at the end of May, and draft budget is typically due 3rd to 4th week of June. The budget process this year has all been postponed. We did get a letter June 3rd from Steve Morgan outlining how the budget process is going to look this year. We will get that draft budget instruction memo from the Division of Management and Budget on July 17th this year. We will have to submit the budget to DMB on August 14th, along with any legislative activity requests or personnel changes.
So we should, I'm sorry to interrupt. We should probably think about when our August board meeting is, and I haven't looked at the calendar, whether it comes before or after the 14th. And we may have to change the date or have a special meeting. Jill?
I think it's after the 14th. I think it's the 17th.
So we might want to think about a special meeting to pass a budget on.
Currently, the meeting is August 19th on the calendar.
Yep, 19th.
So we can, outside of this, we can talk about moving that meeting up.
Our draft is due on the 14th. The county executive will present his budget to the ledge on November 4th this year, not in September. The ledge will meet with the departments November 5th through November 19th. And final day for adopting the budget, December 18th. So those are the dates this year for the budget process. Yeah.
They should be real attentive so close to the election when the county executive delivers his budget.
Everybody will be listening.
So we're jamming a lot of stuff in there, but any other questions for me?
Well, Ed, question for you. Doesn't a lot of this pivot around whether the states get federal virus aid?
Well, it could be dramatically better if the feds decide to put up money to the states. Yes, that would make it dramatically better. If the state is positively impacted then there's a lot of ways in which, and I mean, the counties and the city are expected to get some money in the future. If there's, that would be dramatically better. But
yeah,
right now there's doesn't seem to be a great inclination to move very fast on that.
yeah, okay.
Mark, anything else?
That was it.
Good job.
It's always a lot. Okay, so in terms of board committee reports, it's we don't have any. So that's and that's all due to not being able to meet in person and other things being on hold. In terms of modifying our code of conduct, Christian has put in the chat, and if you scroll down, you'll see a modified, longer version, which says, in compliance with public health efforts, all patrons must wear a mask which covers their mouth and nose when they are within the library for the protection of themselves, staff, and other patrons. Anybody?
I'll move it.
Ed, thank you.
Second.
Bob seconds it. Any discussion? So again, this is modifying the patron code of conduct.
I would say that if the understanding is that this will be temporary, but we don't know when we'll be in a position to lift it.
It's certainly statewide. I mean, that's the rules across the entire state, I think.
So it's in line with the state rules.
Yeah.
There was a question on the screen about children under 2.
Children under 2 by the state do not have to wear a mask, but children over 2 do.
Okay.
Okay, so the language in there says that we're in compliance with.
Yeah, we're in compliance. We don't need to
public health.
We don't need to write that in. I agree. Kids can wear masks. My kid wears a mask. So.
Have any of your staff tested positive, Christian?
We did. We had one staff member who fairly early on tested positive. The timing on it was we had brought staff back into the library on the first week that we had brought staff back in. This staff member, this individual, came back to work on Wednesday, worked Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Over the weekend, started to feel poorly. Went to the doctor, was informed that they were presenting COVID-19 symptoms. They went and got a test. They did not report back for work on Monday. They were tested and they were found to have the coronavirus and COVID-19. Our branch managers reached out to the health department for what we should be doing and contact tracing and all of that kind of stuff. The verbal confirmation that our leadership was given from the health department was that working at the library is roughly analogous to going to the supermarket once, given the level of protections that we have in place. So like literally working with this guy was the equivalent of going to the library, going to the grocery store once. So they seemed to feel like we were in very good shape. At the time when this person was, established as being sick, we did close down that facility. In the future, I will not make that decision again, because at that point, the horse was already out of the barn. If somebody was sick, they were already going to be sick. We have temperature controls. We have a variety of controls in place to ensure that staff are not coming in when they're sick. This individual has recovered, and during the time that they were sick, they actually had a new baby, which is really the big topic of conversation everybody's talking around his work group with, or their work group with. But this individual is back to work now, working well, healthy and happy, and a new parent.
Good. Congratulations.
Okay, so we haven't moved this yet, which we should do before we discuss it.
We thought Ed moved it.
We did move.
Oh, you
I
did?
moved it.
Sorry.
There was a second.
I'll call the question.
So who seconded?
Bob did.
Oh, sorry. I was too busy thinking. Sorry. So I do have a question. so if we add this to our code of conduct, at some point in the future, we'll then vote to remove it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if we say it's consistent with New York state law, doesn't it automatically, when the law changes, default to not being necessary?
I mean, potentially. I'd
If it's
rather not
between
put a.
meetings, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to put a set sundown date on it yet. And I would rather, I'd rather just like, once we all have the vaccine and everything's great and we're all like sitting around a big table eating pasta that I cook for all of you, let's take it off then.
Yeah, and any policy has to be, even if we remove something, has to be voted by the board, so it's on our website correctly.
Okay, so
Tim called the question.
I know, I'm flipping back to my list. So, Rich,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Jenny,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Thank
I
you.
can't wait to vote that back. It'll be amazing.
It will be a very nice day indeed.
Yeah, it'll come. I mean, we're gonna be providing all the trad services. Sam, I'll be doing story time for your kids soon enough. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so
Can I just interject one thing? Speaking of story time, there was a great article in my college alumni newsletter about this third grade teacher in Rochester. She graduated from my alma mater, Brockport, in 2016. And with the schools being closed, she's actually been going around to kids' houses she's basically created a small library in the back of her, the hatchback of her car. It's got a sign saying Miss Mariano's library or whatever her name is. And she's, kids who get their homework done, she'll go to their house and she'll read them stories. There was pictures of the kids with the masks on, sitting like 10 feet away, and she's sitting in there with the mask and holding up a picture book and reading to them. I thought that was the greatest story.
Yeah, that's
It's
amazing.
great.
Well, so the Brockport has two distinguished alumni, one, her and you.
I'll go with that. I'll take
There you
that.
go.
Okay.
Don,
Jeff Van Gundy, but yeah.
and his brother, by the way. So, Don, anything that you want to point out about the city libraries? Anything that
No,
needs
not
explanation?
really. What I did this month, because I thought it was maybe a little bit of a feel-good experience after lots of, I don't know, it's been a rough time for everyone, of course, was I pretty much pulled some information from Lisa Bankert's report. She's the Adult Services Librarian at Pettit, and she pretty much recounted the experience with the takeout service over there, and it's pretty fabulous, and it's still really going very smoothly and very nicely. And the other two things that I just wanted to point out, we've got a great lineup for summer programs this year. Granted, we're not doing any in-person programming, but we've got a great lineup of virtual programs. And so I listed a few of them for you. And then the very last thing, we've been talking a lot about the face shields, and those are the big, long sort of masks, but we have some talented people that work with us, and Dragana actually was able to get plans for a lip reading mask. So you'll see a photograph of that in there. We have, it's not a large population, but a fair number of patrons that actually need, it would be very helpful to serve them better if we had lip reading masks. So she's printing those up for different librarians at the branches, and I thought those were kind of cool. That's about it, if I can answer.
Don, wasn't it your report where didn't I read where the woman was so thrilled? There was a woman who came in and said the most important thing to her about anything reopening was a library, or the most important.
Yeah,
wasn't that in your
it
report?
was one of our patrons. The public is really thrilled just to be able to get materials from us again. And it was such a feel-good moment for all of us. So, you know, there was a little bit of that wonder before we opened up. Well, you know, if we offer this service, or have they forsaken us, or are they really still coming back? And they're back, and the books are flying off the shelf at lots of locations, especially Pettit.
Yeah.
Very, very, very busy there.
If you go to Pettit, they literally have at any given time between 20 and 40 deliveries staged and ready to go.
Wow.
It's incredible. And Ginny, I know you went to Monday and had a really good experience with
Great
Becky over there,
experience.
and everything went well.
So pleasant. It was, you know, they were thrilled to be able to service me. I was really impressed. And I didn't even, you know, drop my stature as a board member. I just kind of said I was here to pick up a book.
Nice.
So we're actually done with the agenda. I don't have a report for this month. I wanted to, I knew that we had other things to talk about. So I will just ask the board members if there's anything else we need to discuss.
Jill, Babette asked me to just relay
Yes.
some strategic planning updates, so I can do that very quickly. So obviously the challenge with strategic planning right now is that everything's very weird. So Babette's been looking at some different examples of strategic plans from other library systems, especially ones that are similar to ours. Looking at some of the critical elements, including those with, so we'll want to get input from various stakeholders and have some detailed work plans, and then do an analysis of those plans and present those within the next few weeks to review before the August meeting. And the committee will set up a meeting in the next few weeks to discuss if there are changes to the patron survey. Obviously, patron survey is going to be significantly different than initially planned, and then figuring out how to collect responses, and then also start to identify proposed KPIs so that we can have some specific metrics to measure. I know I just read an article today or yesterday that was looking at just how many more ebook and you know, sort of online rentals from libraries have happened across the country. And so, you know, obviously that's something that would be significantly different if we had a KPI related to overdrive rentals today versus 6 months ago. And so I think thinking critically about those kind of things today will be important.
And I know that Christian also has been looking at plans a while ago, had looked at plans from other libraries. I think this is one of the things we'll want to do moving forward with strategic planning, is to get Christian and more staff involved in the process and really make this a document that will lead us into the future, whether it's a flexible strategic plan or however, because they come in different flavors, but we've got some thinking to do.
I've still been in contact with some of my cohorts at similarly sized cities and institutions. The folks that I talked to you about as kind of my, you know, the cohorts who remind me of us. And we're still kind of together as a, you know, how you doing, buddy? I'm not doing so great. How you doing, buddy? I'm not doing so great, but we're getting through it kind of group. So I can certainly bring some of those folks in on some of the conversation, and we can probably loop some pretty interesting folks in on getting some feedback from actual folks who've been, you know, maybe a year or two ahead of us on this. Yeah. Everybody's doing fine, by the way. All the library directors are in great shape.
Sam, so if you can feedback to Babette to kind of think out to when she wants a meeting, especially since we'll want to involve some staff in that, and Christian can decide who that would be.
That sounds great. Yep.
So Sam, sorry, I know that Babette had told me that you were reporting and I forgot, so apologies. Anything else from the board?
Jill, I would just keep in mind fundraising is sort of a back burner. I mean, we don't know how this financial stuff is going to play out. We probably will in the next 2 months, 4 months. But I think, again, in this group of ours, there are connections, contacts into the philanthropic world Focal is full of development directors, at least, so they're, if we find ourselves needing to get into the fundraising to avoid let's say a 20-30% cut in staff, I think we step up and do it. There's no question, in fact.
Bob, I don't know if you were aware of it. Elizabeth Quilter just joined the board of Focal.
Okay.
So I think that's, obviously fundraising is important, but having that group focus on it rather than us who aren't really, that's not our job. And rather than be at cross purposes with them asking people for donations while we're asking, I wonder if we aren't better funneling all of our efforts through them and having them orchestrate it.
They have several. I agree. We would want to cross purpose. And I know what Elizabeth well, and you couldn't get a better one. I was glad she got on. But
Focal came about because of budget cuts to the 1993 county budget, the library.
But I'm
so
saying,
that's their very purpose.
Yeah, and so they're
scrambling too, Bob. I mean, I was in their last board meeting, and you know, it's not mission critical or anything, but they're taking a ding too. You know, these events are their primary, you know, their bread and butter, and they're losing about half the season. So. And they're doing it virtually, and they're doing a variety of things, and they're trying to do their best. But, you know, as we're starting to look at fundraising, I would love to get their take on it as well, because they're going to have a really, really, really strong awareness of what the game on the ground is.
Yeah, no, they're the pros.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Quilter is probably one of the best in the state. What she did with the YMCA was unbelievable. So, but I just, you know, but we have the connections into the philanthropic, the personal connections, and those really are priceless.
So maybe the question is, how do we support their work? And that's probably a conversation that we should have with them.
Yeah, I think it would be. But
and also if they could do fundraising outside of the their speaker series.
Is the speaker?
We could spend a lot of time in this, because over the years we had a foundation, we had Focal, and we've gone through all these topics, and some of you are apparently they're not aware of all of it, but it's worthy of a conversation. But we had, when I was on the Focal board, and there was a time when I was president, we spent countless hours with the idea that Focal should be more than just a lecture series, but it hasn't gone anywhere. And the foundation that existed disbanded, so that there wouldn't be the foundation raising money and Focal raising money. So if you want to have further discussion about it in the future, there's a long history. And I think what we need to do right now is, as Ginny said, if we can support Focal's efforts, that's what we need to do, because we are still largely a governmental institution, and it makes it much more difficult for us to raise money.
Yeah,
I think it would be interesting to hear their history at some point. Maybe we set aside 10 minutes or 15 minutes in a future meeting or something offsite, because I'd be interested in hearing about all that.
Yeah, an abbreviated history you want.
Is that right, Jenny?
Okay, anything else?
Are the Focal lectures definitely virtual? Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the next one is the end of this month.
Paula McLean.
Okay.
Anyone to move that we adjourn?
So moved.
Jenny? Ed, second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We don't have a meeting scheduled in July, so we'll get a meeting scheduled in early August. We'll move up that meeting. So thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks. Stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.